Me and my husband were talking, and it had only been a few weeks since we got married. Suddenly, he fainted. I immediately called for an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor shocked me with some news that hit me like a death sentence.
Madam, your young husband is suffering from a chronic and serious illness that will never be cured. It will worsen over time, and he will become paralyzed.
What? A chronic illness? Paralysis? Isn't there any treatment for it?
No. There is currently no known treatment for this disease.
I was struck with fear and anxiety. Oh my God, they hid his illness from me. Did my parents know about it? Hello, I'm Maria, and that's my disabled husband. Do you want to know why he is disabled? He wasn't like this before. Well, let me continue my story until the end. After my husband returned home and woke up, he apologized for keeping it a secret and told me it was his parents' idea. In that moment, I wondered if my parents knew about all of this, and he answered me,
Yes, don't be angry at them. My father offered them a profitable deal. Their daughter marries a young man who will die in a few years and inherits all his wealth. Who can refuse such an offer?
What? Am I a commodity being bargained for money? Why didn't you ask me? How can someone decide about my life instead of me? And you, how can someone think about having children while being sick? Aren't you afraid that your child will inherit your illness? At that point, I left the house and headed to my parents' home. I entered like a madwoman, screaming at them and accusing them of selling me. After calming down a bit, I looked at their faces and saw despair and sadness. I realized that they were also victims like me. So I decided to go back to my house to process what was happening. I found Brian sitting in the living room, staring at the wall. I approached him and said, I'm sorry for my reaction, but...
I understand you well. I'm sorry we deceived you, but I didn't agree to involve you in my painful journey to death. If you want, I'll give you a divorce.
I need to think about it. But after our conversation, 2 weeks later, my husband's movement started slowing down, and he found it difficult to get around. That's when I realized that staying with him could be beneficial, especially since his spirits were very low. I decided to stay with him because my conscience wouldn't allow me to leave him like that. Our daily struggle began, and even the simplest movements were painful and difficult for him. Despite having a home caregiver, I myself who accompanied him from morning till evening, since we spent all our time together, we talked a lot and exchanged many opinions. I got to know him and his personality, and I liked what I discovered. I felt myself falling in love with him, which I feared would happen. My only goal then became to make his life as comfortable as possible. We lived beautiful days and weeks, laughing together even when I had to hold him or dress him. However, our sexual life remained non-existent, despite my feelings for him, because I was afraid of getting pregnant and having a child with him, especially after his doctor told me that the illness could be hereditary and the matter wasn't certain. So I preferred to avoid any physical contact with him. After about a year, Brian became unable to take care of himself at all, and we had to hire a nurse to assist him in going to the bathroom because I didn't have the necessary strength for that. During that period, I would cry when I found myself alone because I knew the man I had come to love would soon die. And no one could change that, despite the medication meant to delay the end. What we feared happened. After another year, Brian couldn't breathe on his own anymore and needed a machine to support him continuously. That's when he said to me,
Thank you for your kindness. You have suffered a lot with me, even though you could have left.
I stayed because I truly loved you. You're my beloved, and I'll stay with you as long as there is a breath in you. I held his hand and we smiled at each other. Brian passed away 6 months later while he was sleeping. I cried a lot for him because he was a remarkable person. I often wondered how my life with him would have been if he hadn't been sick. What comforted me was that he felt my love for him and appreciated my constant presence and my belief that we would overcome the difficult circumstances. When I inherited all his wealth, I donated half of it to a laboratory that focuses on researching a cure for this dreadful disease, hoping to contribute to alleviating people's pain. Thank you, my friends, for watching my story, and I hope you will share your thoughts on what my parents did. Were they right, or did they make a mistake with their daughter? Goodbye, and see you in a new experience.